This is King World News. I'm Eric King, and you're about to hear an unbelievably powerful interview with Nigel Farage. Nigel gives us a powerful glimpse into our future if we continue to follow the European blueprint, which is designed to eliminate our independence and force us into a regional and eventual global government. Remember to go to our homepage at www.kingworldnews.com for more interviews, where this week we also have Lord Monckton, who has become so famous for his speech in Minnesota on the Copenhagen Treaty. Dr. Mark Faber, editor and publisher of the Gloom Boom Doom newsletter, as well as Jeffrey Sout, chief investment strategist from Raymond James. Joining us now is Nigel Farage, co-president of the Europe of Freedom and Democracy Group and national spokesman for the United Kingdom's Independence Party. Nigel, I'd just like to start off playing a clip of you in action on the European Parliament.
Well, good morning, everybody. You're all very downbeat this morning. I thought this was going to be a big, proud moment. I mean, it's taken you 8.5 years of bullying, of lying, of ignoring democratic referendums. 8.5 years it's taken you to get this treaty through, and on the 1st of December, you will have it. And, of course, the architect of all of this, Giscard, wanted from this constitutional treaty for the European Union to have a big global voice. But I'm afraid the leaders have suffered from a collective loss of nerve. They've decided that they want their faces to be up on the global stage, not somebody from the European Union, and so we've got appointed a couple of political pygmies. The Kissinger question of who to call in Europe hasn't really been answered, has it? I guess the answer can only be Mr. Barroso, because he's the only one that anybody in the world has ever heard of, and is probably the big winner out of these posts. No wonder, sir, you look so happy this morning. And we have a new president of Europe, Herman Van Rompuy. Doesn't exactly trip off the tongue, does it? I can't see him stopping the traffic in Beijing or Washington. I doubt anybody in Brussels would even recognise who he is. And yet, he's going to be paid a salary that is bigger than Obama's, which tells you all you need to know about this European political class and how they look after themselves. But at least he's an elected politician, unlike Baroness Cathy Ashton, who really is the true representation of the modern-day political class. In some ways, she's ideal, isn't she? She's never had a proper job, and she's never been elected to anything in her life. So I guess she's perfect for this European Union.
Excuse me, Mr. Farage.
Yes.
I would like to put down your postages. You made your presentation.
Right,
is enough for us.
Chaps.
Okay,
Calm down, chaps.
Please continue.
Calm down. But, I mean, she's never been elected to anything, and no one knows who she is. Even the Prime Minister was talking about Baroness Ashdown as opposed to Ashton. I mean, no one has ever heard of her. She's even less well known than Herman Van Rompuy. I mean, that takes some doing, doesn't it? She's risen without trace. She's part of this post-democratic age. She married well. She married an advisor and a friend and supporter of Tony Blair and got put in the House of Lords. When she was in the House of Lords, she was given one big job. And the job was to get the Lisbon Treaty through the House of Lords, and to do so pretending that it was entirely different to the EU constitution. So she's good at keeping a straight face. And she vigorously crushed any attempt in the House of Lords for the British people to have a referendum. So here she is. Never stood for public office, never had a proper job, and here she gets one of the top jobs in the Union. Her appointment is an embarrassment for Britain.
Absolutely outstanding opening clip, Nigel. For our listeners in the United States and globally, can you get them up to speed with what is taking place in European government that is so outrageous? Just in summary, because I know that's a very open-ended question.
Well, when Britain joined what we called the common market 35 years ago, what the people were told, my parents' generation were told, is we were getting ourselves involved in something that was about free trade, that was about taking down tariff barriers, was about making it easier for business to not have the problem of national boundaries. What we weren't told is that from the very start, from the Treaty of Rome, which was the treaty that set up the original European Economic Community, that actually behind it, there had always been a political agenda. There'd always been the aim that they create a state. Now, to do that, the necessary thing was to get a constitution just as you guys had your constitution, a rather good constitution, incidentally, written by some brilliant people, what the EU had to do was to get a constitution so that legally they could turn it into a state. And for the last 8 years, they've been trying to get this constitution through. Their difficulty has been that there are one or two countries in Europe that refer to their electors in the form of a referendum. So the French people were asked, do you want a European Union constitution? And they said no. The Dutch people were asked, and they said no. So then, through the most incredible sleight of hand, what they did is they rebranded it as the Lisbon Treaty. And in fact, the former president of Italy, Mr. D'Amato, once said that the great thing about calling it a treaty is there won't need to be any referendums. And only one country had a referendum, and that was the Irish. And they, of course, said no, but were forced to vote again until they said yes. And what happened on the 1st of December was that constitutional treaty became law. And from the 1st of December, the European Union is a legal entity. It's a state in its own right. It has the ability to sign treaties, and it now has a president and a foreign minister, Mr. Van Rompuy and Baroness Cathy Ashton. So, I mean, they may well be political pygmies. They may well be bureaucrats. They may well be people who've not been elected by anybody and therefore can't be removed for the peoples of Europe, but they've got enormous power, and we now find ourselves, we, Great Britain, the country that actually developed parliamentary democracy, and we now find ourselves legally a province of a new European state, and nobody has ever given me the opportunity to express an opinion, and I'm pretty angry about it.
Absolutely, and I'm sure a lot in Britain are. Let me play one more clip from that, if you don't mind, because that was quite an exchange, really, that went a little bit around the loop there, because you had it with another member, and then, of course, with the gentleman who was leading, who was trying to correct you, which was quite odd.
But it's much worse. Well, at least I've been elected, sir. Unlike her, she's not been elected, and the people don't have the power to remove her. But just hear the next bit. There's something rather more serious than that. Cathy Ashton was an active member of the campaign for nuclear disarmament. In fact, she was the treasurer of the campaign for nuclear disarmament during a period of time when CND took very large donations and refused to reveal the source. What is known is that these donations were obtained by a man called Will Howard, who was a member of the Communist Party in Great Britain. Will Baroness Ashton deny that while she was treasurer, that she took funds from organisations who were opposed to Western-style capitalism and democracy? That question must be asked. And are we really happy that somebody who will be in charge of our overseas security policy was an activist a few years ago in an outfit like CND? I mean, if we really think that, frankly, we need our bumps felt. I don't think that she's a fit and proper person to do this job. She has no experience, and unless she can answer those questions, did she take money from enemies of the West? That question must be answered. Well, we have our two pygmies. We'll have the bland leading the bland. But I'm not celebrating, because they'll press on with political union, and whilst our leaders may have saved face for the moment for themselves on the international stage, they have all betrayed their national democracies. The European state is here. We're about to get an avalanche of new laws because of this Lisbon Treaty, and there's no question in my mind that there has to be a full, free, fair referendum in the United Kingdom to decide whether we stay part of this union or not. I hope and pray that we vote to leave, but either way, the people simply must be asked. Thank you.
Nigel, again with this, it's an incredible exchange, and these people are sitting there, not, 10 to 15 feet away from you.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm as leader of a group, I'm literally amongst them. I mean, they hate me in a way that you simply can't believe. They hate me so much, they don't think I should even exist. They don't accept that it's right and proper, that there should be an alternative view. And so what they do, and perhaps you heard a bit of it in that clip, is what they do is they try and shout me down the whole time.
Yes.
I mean, I'm continually heckled and barracked, but they're picking on the wrong bloke in me, because all that does is make me all the more determined.
As I stopped that clip at around the 5:15 mark, 5:16, he's giving you a look of, how do we eliminate this guy? How do we make him just disappear?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what happened here, and you've heard the words I used, and I meant them, but what happened here is I was actually reprimanded for giving that speech by the President of the Parliament. I was told that what I'd said was unacceptable, that I needed to tone it down, that I was upsetting people. And then when that debate had finished, I got back to my office, and there was a demand